Hello, and welcome to another episode of Accounting Insiders Podcast. I am Gary DeHart, the host of Accounting Insiders and the publisher of Insightful Accountant and Tax Practice News. Today, my guest is Andrew Lassise, the Chief Orchestrator of Tech for Accountants. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for hopping on and spending a few minutes with me. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, Gary, thank you so much. Pleasure to be on the show.
So prior to this, we kind of went over, we said, hey, we're going to cover a few different things. So let me jump in. I was on your LinkedIn page, on your profile. And actually, before I dive into that, what is Tech for Accountants and what do you guys do?
So Tech for Accountants in a nutshell, cybersecurity for smaller accounting firms. So there's 492,000 private IT companies out there, many of which can get the job done. But really where we find our sweet spot, the organizations less than 25, even less than 10, even solo practitioners, where people, they're concerned with cybersecurity and want to get things like that handled. And so we've built a really scalable model that's able to handle a lot of the smaller firms, whereas a lot of the other companies that are specifically in the accounting industry, they don't want to work with the people with 10, 15, especially 1, 2, 3, 4 employees. Just there isn't really a good price point for it to make sense on their side. And
Right.
So really what we do though is we hone in on helping the smaller firms and making it so that it's not going to be so outrageously expensive that it's cost prohibitive to just protect their company, which, is obviously a huge thing. So cybersecurity for accountants. Okay, perfect. And with accountants, you shared that tax accountants. So primarily, number one focus, the tax people. Is that correct? Yeah.
But not limited there.
Yeah, it's not limited to just tax, but a lot of what we focus on is IRS compliance and IRS publications and the security that's laid out in those. So our standard offering is based off of what the IRS wants to see. So whether or not you're bound by the IRS and need to answer to them, or if you do books and just want someone that's familiar with the differences of QBO and zero and know that the end of January is crunch time for 1099 deadlines, things like that are sort of the things that we focus on. But the big piece is if you are a small tax accounting firm, I'm the best for this, but I just genuinely have not come across another company that hits it, even accepts it, but then not only that, does the amount of work that we do for them.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of significance in that specialty, right? Being able to speak their language, which you just referenced. So, the difference in QBO and, some other random term that may have nothing to do with accounting, right? I get that. And a lot of the, tax and accounting professionals also are hyper niched as well. So I would think that would resonate well with this space.
Yeah. Decommoditizing is really important in a service industry, especially when, like I said, there's 492,000 IT companies that you can choose, and 491,000 of them are everything to everyone. We can handle you no matter who you are. We can support it. We can handle it. And, the fact of the matter is, if you peel back the layers, yes, we're called Tech for Accountants. If you're a dentist and come to us, we can do all of the things that you need to have done. Maintaining your server, blah, 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 blah. HIPAA, there's overlap with things that the IRS wants to see. But in general, a lot of things, IT is IT. So chiropractor comes to us. Yes, we're fully capable of doing it. It's not a matter of whether or not you're capable, just like if you're doing people's books or you're doing their taxes. You're capable of handling a whole lot of different scenarios. But when you're spreading yourself so thin, learning all the ins and outs, like we had before we started focusing just in the accounting world, we had 4 different chiropractors, and 3 of them were each on different chiropractic software. So it's like, we have to learn this SaaS model here. We have to learn this cloud model here. You have to remember that with this weird one, these guys use this small unknown one, and there isn't documentation. So we have to build it out ourselves. And we still run into that in the tax accounting world, but there's only 20 to know versus every single industry having all these different things and needing to dig in and learn on each individual client that you get that looks this way. Whereas for us, someone's like, well, you see, I do work for my clients on this program called Drake, and you see what Drake does. And we're like, yeah, we know, yes, you don't have to go further. We know it probably better than you do at this point. So
Right. Yeah.
we've
solved that for 5 other people, and we can solve it. Just give me 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's, like you said, with 10 other people, because there are times where we've run into issues, and I think it might have been ATX, whatever the software was. It's a very, very, very specific, random something that you can't just Google to find the answer. And I remember it took us 2 days to figure out this one particular problem. And then other clients started getting it. And I mean, it's just 2 clicks to fix. It's just knowing what 2 things to click. Yeah. And so now someone says, oh, it says ATX can't connect to the server, blah, 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 error code this. So, okay, yeah, we just disable IPv6. Duh. But, if you're not the first one or if you're working with another provider that you're the first time they see it, you get to be the first time that they solve it. Like I said, for us, it was 2 days, but all the other ones are just like, yeah, what do I pay you for? That took you 5 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
Pay me for the 2 days that I spent on the first one. Kind of like we said before, right? That first car rolling off the line is really, really expensive to build. And all right, so I've got a couple of questions. I don't want to run out of time, and I don't want to keep you too long, but so a large focus of what you've done, both from a business standpoint with us, but also I think just in your general marketing, and it was on your LinkedIn page, is kind of the 6 steps to compliance with IRS Pub 4557. What is that pub? What is 4557 for those who don't know it? I imagine most of our people would know it, but
yeah, everyone that does IT in the accounting space is like, I love Pub 4557. It's my favorite. And essentially it's a 26-page checklist of cybersecurity that the IRS wants to see firms incorporating into their practice. Sometimes it's going to be things that are just super over the top and don't apply to a smaller firm. But as a general rule of thumb, it's very, very good for processes and procedures for things that you should be incorporating into your firm. And like you had hit on the Security 6, which are at a very high level. So Pub 4557 is 26 pages. The Security 6 is just 6 items that are good practice to have. It's antivirus, firewall, backup, VPN, encryption, and 2-factor authentication. All of them by themselves in a silo, great to have. Is that going to stop everything under the sun? Of course not. It's just like anything in life. But 80-20, you're going to have good security just off of those 6 things, and probably 4 of them anybody could knock out on their own. The drive encryption piece, it's one of those, it's so easy if you know what you're doing, but if you get it wrong, you've put military grade encryption on your own computer against yourself. And unless you got a time machine, that's not gonna get undone. And sometimes VPNs could be tricky as well, but yeah. So
would you say that kind of those 6, that's the minimum that a firm?
Yeah, those 6, and
any company really.
Yeah. And like I had said, just because we focus just in the accounting industry, any person in any industry, even a home user, can really benefit from at least having those 6 things in place. Because once you have that, there's at least a foundational level of good security practice Now, when we start off engagements with our clients, even before they become customers, we're doing an audit on the security 6. Probably 99 times out of 100, someone's missing something in that. It's for whatever reason, and we're in IT, so we're like, of course everyone's got this, but we look in, and my own accountant, this was years ago, I thought he was the best because he says he's the best and like waves a magic wand, and I don't know what I don't know. Come to find out, a couple years later, another accountant audited the work, and he's like, was he in a bad car accident? Like, this is the worst thing I've ever witnessed. Like,
Wow.
what I'm looking at is like an accounting 101. Like, what's wrong with this?
Yeah, it's like a bad final.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't know what I didn't know. So a lot of times, people come to us, oh, my IT guy's great, I just need a couple things for compliance. And it's difficult because it's like, we're not here to step on people's toes. We're not here to take away business, but you don't know what you don't know. And I've got IRS.gov saying they want to see all of these things, and it doesn't exist here. Right. So, it's good to have just a third party review it and at least give you the awareness that there are problems, or confirm that things are done correctly. But I learned my lesson on my
well, and if there are problems, somebody that can solve them, right? Because it might take me 3 days, going back to your ATX, and it might take 2 days for me just to figure out that it's only a 2-step process, but that's 2 days that I've wasted, let's say in the middle of tax season, right? That I really should be focused on my core business and getting that, returns done and out the door.
It's just like, I could try to do my own taxes, and I could get TurboTax and I could get a return. Like the end product of a return would happen. Now, how well it would be done and whether or not I'd be able to get all the deductions I'm entitled to, or on the flip side, if I tried doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, like saying, oh, well, my dog is a business expense because, well, my dog's an expense, just like my mortgage is an expense. And I write off my whole house because my house is basically my business. So just, you don't know what you don't know. So having someone that does know it and knows your own industry, there's countless benefits. Everyone told me I would be dumb if we only worked with accountants. They're like, you realize it's only like 1% of the market that we can work with, right? Like, you're throwing away 99%. And it's like, you realize we're going against 492,000 other people that all say the exact same thing. Maybe we could be better than them at some things.
Yeah. And I mean, if you tapped if every single tax and accounting firm was your client, I mean, you could never serve them all, right? I mean,
right. Like the total addressable market for us, I think it's like 1 million firms.
Yeah, massive.
So I mean, we're at like 0.5% of that right now. So we still got a long way to go.
Lock down half the accounting channel, and then you'll go into the medical doctors or whatever. So
or I'll just retire, just call it a day.
But like we said at the beginning, there's so much value in the knowledge that you guys bring to the table of already understanding tax and accounting, that it makes a lot of sense to highly focus.
And just some of the little twists, like in April, we don't charge expedited service fees for anybody that's an accountant. They all get front of line service. So we've been in business 9 years, but 3 of the years have been the accountant focus. So we have 6 years of customers before that won't leave us. But come April, we understand Anybody that has CPA, EA, any designation, books related, they just go to the front of the line automatically.
No.
Because it's super urgent for them. And we understand that. We also don't talk to them during that time too.
Right, yeah.
A, they don't let us, but
Right.
B, we know this is not the time to bug people.
Right.
When you've got a month of work ahead of you and 1 week to do it, you don't want to hear about the latest in cybersecurity.
Exactly.
You want us to burn and disappear, and you just
Yeah.
want it to work.
I want to know that it's working and that I don't have to mess with it.
Well, that's how I feel with my books and my taxes. Just
Exactly.
is it done right? I'm not going to get audited. And this is the lowest amount I'm supposed to pay. You sure? Ugh, good problems.
Yeah. All right. So let's bounce over to kind of the tech challenges facing tax and accounting firms. What do you have, like a top 3 or 5 or 22? Probably 3 or 5.
Yeah. So some of the biggest challenges is security getting in the way of things just being easy. And the analogy I like to use, it's like if you don't lock your front door to your house, it's a lot easier to get in and out. When you have friends over, you don't have to go to the front door and unlock it for them. It's easier for everybody if the front door to your house is just always unlocked. It's even easier if the front door is just always open. And then no one even has to deal with the door. If you're doing groceries, you could just carry it in and not have to worry about the door. And a lot of people, they run the security of their firm with the front door just wide open because it's easier to get by. Nobody likes to do the 2-factor authentication. Nobody likes to change their passwords or use long passwords. And even on the tech side, it's not like we enjoy doing those things or enjoy making it more difficult. But if you don't want your house to be wide open, you need to have the door shut and the locks. And then depending on the size of your business, if you need the moat and the armored guards and all these things, there's different levels that are necessary for different size businesses. But one of the challenges, and we had faced this early on and changed our tech stack because of it, because we were looking at it through just the IT techie angle of here's the best security you can possibly get. And once you learn how to use it, you're going to love it. And our customers just kept telling us, I don't want to learn how to use it. My goal isn't to learn all these cool to you bells and whistles. I just want it to work. And, we listen, and that's what our clients were telling us is they don't care about all the cool bells and whistles and, well, with this software, it can send you this report and help you dig in and understand. They didn't want any of that.
Right.
The tech people wanted it, but the clients didn't. So we changed our entire stack. Everything on it's still good, but we changed it from bells and whistles and everything that a tech person would want. We changed it to just be simple, and we'll handle it. And that way, when we get a new client, we shoot them an email of here's some stuff you should know, but we're not completely turning the organization upside down. And now you have all of these new challenges, and there's a time and place for things that you need to have locked down. I'm not saying that you should have just minimal good enough protection, but I think it's important to focus on getting your tech stack to be what the clients are looking for. And what they've told us is they just want it to work. They want to be secure. They want to know that it's in compliance. That's the thing that they're solving. So straddling that line between here is really good security and this is so inconvenient that you're just going to leave the front door wide open because it's just easier that way. So, having in that analogy, like the door is shut with a lock, but we don't have to do the biometric scan and get past the guard with the secret handshake and defuse a bomb and do a Rubik's Cube in order to get in front door. There's there's certain things for that. So as far as that goes, that's one of the biggest things that we see. Another obstacle that we see a lot of our clients running into, and this is something that a challenge that I have on the not being a tax professional side that I'd spoken about earlier, is a lot of times we don't know what we don't know, and if we have kind of the people that are good enough to be dangerous, a lot of times we'll run into, there's a bit of an ego behind, well, I bought this thing off the shelf at Best Buy and it's the most expensive thing that they sell. Therefore, I don't need someone who's certified by the AICPA in cybersecurity. I spent $60 at Best Buy. So what possible value could you bring to the table that this snake oil that I bought at a store that I don't understand sold me? So, one of the obstacles we'll run into is people that, and it's not that they want to tiptoe around this. They think they know more than they do. Yes, they know enough to be dangerous. And myself, I was in this boat before I was an IT professional, or even a couple years early into it. Remember, I was working at a restaurant before IT was my full everything. And one of the computers there, I was like, oh, let me use this registry cleaner. Look how much better the computer is going to be now that I cleaned your registry. And then we were getting all these weird issues. And I'm like, it's unrelated, blah, blah, blah. No, I only make it faster and better because I know so much. And come to find out, like, when I get into the IT world, it's like no one should be doing registry cleaners, but they sell it and market it like, here's a way that you can fix 80,000 issues on your computer, and you click the button and it says 80,000 fixed. But the flip side of that is, if one of those should not have been in there, everything's gone. Computer doesn't turn on anymore. And understanding, here are the implications of the things that I'm trying to do on my own. Yes, you know the word. Yes, you're capable of clicking the buttons to make these things happen. But if you're not aware of the implications of what you're doing down the road, you can start getting into trouble. This can happen even with email things. People will have like I'm not going to get into the weeds of it. There's two different types of emails you could do. There's POP3 and IMAP.
Right.
And if you choose POP3, you're wrong unless you really, really know why you need it. And people, I did it because I read some blog post, and it's like, did you miss the part that says that it's going to remove it from the server when you read it?
No, was that in the first paragraph? No. Okay. Well, I didn't see it then.
Right. So the thinking that you know more than you do, and having the willingness to just say, I know a lot, and I also know that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
So that's going to help a lot of people with just the awareness that there are more things that they can do to protect it and protect their firm. And then I think one of the other challenges, and I completely understand it from an ROI and business perspective, but a lot of people, they don't really like spending money.
That's what I was sitting there thinking. I was going to say number 3's got to be that, right?
Yeah, I totally understand. I don't like spending money to have my books done. I don't like spending money to have my taxes done. I don't like spending money on car repairs, maintenance. I don't like spending money on cybersecurity, if I'm being honest. Like, we can handle most of it to where we just have our own ways to get all these things done that software would have cost. But, people, if they look at it strictly from an ROI perspective, how is hiring your company going to put more money into my pocket? It's more of a defensive play versus offensive. So if you're looking at it more like what's the ROI going to be on insurance? It's like, hopefully nothing happens to where you need the insurance, but when you have a claim, you need to have had the insurance in place before the claim happens. You can't have the emergency accident, then say, now it's time for insurance. I'd like to file a claim and use my insurance. It has to be done ahead of time. Then the added benefit with IT versus insurance in the analogy is there's also the defensive side and the proactive side that's stopping you from needing that disaster recovery in the first place. So, someone that doesn't have an IT firm, person clicks on an email, gets ransomware, the whole company's encrypted, everything's down, you've lost everything. Call the IT company, can you fix it? Yeah, and it's going to cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and we may be able to recover it if we are lucky. Now, had you engaged a company like ours before that, we already have a gapped backup. So, and again, person clicks on it and it says, you can't download this, and nothing happens. Right. So why do I pay you? It's like, because that didn't happen. But, right. Unless you feel it, it's like, why would I exercise? It's like, so you're healthy.
Right. So is there a rule of thumb? And I'm sure, there's, different expenses are going to be different for every firm, but is there a rule of thumb that people should be budgeting for this? And again, in our space, right, tax and accounting, this is a requirement. It's not an option now.
Right.
The IRS, what is it? Security, the six.
Well, there's a million publications, like 4557, I think, was the first kind of like big mainstream one that companies like ours saw and was like, these are great just practices in general. Like, thank you, IRS, for making this. And then went to our accounting clients and said, did you know this existed? Like, let's make sure that we're checking all these boxes and things like that. So as far as budget goes, it's really going to depend on the environment that you're in. It's going to depend on your revenue also, because you could have a solo firm that brings in 60,000 a year. You could have a solo firm that's bringing in 250,000 a year. You could have, so there's a lot of different variations. So there aren't really hard and fast rules with it. It's more along the lines of, if you're not capable of doing it on your own, or don't have the time, or don't want to learn, or don't want to make mistakes and just want to have someone else do it, that's really where the conversation opens up. And I know, the prices, they range a lot in the IT space, just in general, at least from what we're told from a lot of people, that when they're shopping around, that ours cost less than what other people are charging. So whether or not that's only for experts in the accounting industry or IT firms in general, I know where we lie, and it is on like the middle lower side. Mm-hmm. But people still, we don't have that thing like the engagement ring needs to be 2 months of salary. Your cybersecurity budget needs to be what's appropriate for your size. Or, the salesman in me is like, yeah, 2 months of salary is about right.
Salary. Right off the top. Yeah.
2 months of salary per employee. That's about right.
Right. Yeah. No, we get that covered. So, yeah. And so, and kind of like we alluded to before, if you're a smaller firm, it's going to be a bigger percentage more likely, because you're a smaller firm, and there's, it costs you, X amount of time to do the, IT audit and to get these things in place.
Yeah. So, yeah. On our side, and that's where it's not apples to apples, where say you were doing a tax return, and hopefully I'm not butchering this. This is speculation from my peanut brain, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct in this. If you were doing a return for a solopreneur that has 20 clients on a side hustle, the amount of work that would go into that as a tax preparer would be a lot less work than it would for a solopreneur that has 10,000 clients and a whole bunch of different vendors and a bunch of different 1099s coming in and a bunch of different merchant processing and different variations. On our side, we're just dealing with one person. So the complexity doesn't really change based on the role that that person has. The amount of work that we're doing is really based on a head count. So it's really just multiplying based on the number of heads. And so that's something that it stinks, but it is what it is. You know, we'll have people being like, hey, I want to have everything that the IRS wants to see. And we say the price. They're like, well, no, I'm just a small firm. It's just me. And I only have 20 returns that I'm doing. Most of them are friends and family.
Yeah.
You know, that it doesn't, right? Like if the IRS had like a, here's the requirements for a super small firm, and they've got variations in language depending on size of firm, but it's still, we can't just, oh, well, you would like to pay practically nothing. Well, we will only give you the tiniest piece of it because we're just really not into customizing every single thing. Like the IRS has guidelines and we just follow the guidelines. But a lot of the firms we work with, probably 60% are solo firms and people at the tail end of their career, or people just starting out, or people that do it as a hobby. I mean, we handle a lot of small things, but sometimes they're very, very small I only do returns for my friends and family, but I have a P10. Okay. I mean, this is what we offer.
Right.
So
we still need it. So let me wrap up with just a couple other questions. One, over to your right shoulder there, it says free accountant IT audit. Tell me about that. What's that process look like? Or what is it? What's it cover and what's that look like?
Yeah. So if you go to tech4accountants.net, and that's for the number 4, tech4accountants.net, we have a calendar on there where you could schedule a complimentary audit. And essentially what we do is you have a certified technician. All of our techs are certified with the AICPA in cybersecurity, as well as the P10 security group. We got a lot of certifications, not to brag, but we're the best. But so anyway, you have a tech that knows what they're doing, and they'll do a remote connection on your computer, and they'll go through the IRS Security 6. And do you have antivirus? Yes, you do. Here you go. Do you have a firewall? Yes, you do. Here you go. Do you have drive encryption? You do not have drive encryption. Okay, well, here's a vulnerability. Here are the issues that happen as a result of that. Do you have two-factor authentication? Oh, it's inconvenient. I understand. However, very important. And so we'll hit at the security 6, and then it'll usually, if we go through the top 6 and we're already failing half of it, it's just sort of like where there's smoke, there's fire. We can pretty much assume what we're going to find when we start digging deeper and deeper and deeper into the more nuanced things. So put together the plan of, look, here's what I see. Here's what, if I spend another hour digging, here's probably what we're going to find. Here's the solution that we have for people in your scenario, which is basically a tax preparer. Our solution is what the IRS recommends. But we also will do it for organizations that have internal IT. We have companies that have 150 employees, and their in-house IT person hires us as an extension of them because they know the firm that they work with, but we work with thousands of others. So we have a more holistic view on it, and the not doing the forest, like seeing the forest versus the trees. And so in the audit, though, we look through basically everything. So say we get through security 6, you check everything. Okay, now we're going to look a little deeper into publication 4557, 5293, 1075, and there's tons of publications on cybersecurity. And we basically just went through line by line, and the IRS says they want to see a screen timeout at 15 to 30 minutes, then we add that to our standard list. So you work with us. If you're away from the computer for 30 minutes, you'll have to log back in, because one of the publications says they'd like to see that. So when we're working with people that have a good foundational level of security, that audit will address things like that. Some of the more nuanced things, like your Wi-Fi can't be identifying that you're an accounting firm. So things like that aren't
Right.
like giant red flags, but are still pieces that should be addressed.
And likely I would never know that. I would never have any reason to know that.
I didn't know it until we started building this thing either. So
Right.
it's okay.
Yeah, but an accountant, hey, I'm really good at at accounting. I'm really good at tax. I'm not necessarily great at reading every pub that the IRS puts out. So before we wrap up, you had mentioned when we were talking before, there's a June 9th deadline.
Oh yeah, the
FTC
the FTC safeguards rule, and that's going to be, I think, a gigantic thing, especially once the April deadline comes and goes, and people are able to catch their breath. The FTC has a safeguards rule, which has been in place for a long time, but they sort of revamped it, and they have basically two different versions. One if you have less than 5,000 clients, and one if you have more than 5,000 clients. And it's basically a giant checklist. And we're putting together a guide. It still isn't finished yet, but a guide of how to navigate that and be compliant with it. But yeah, the deadline on that's going to be, it's June 9th, 23. And we're going to be assisting people with getting compliant with that as well. And in the past, people were sort of, FTC, like, that's banks, financial institutions, do accountants fall into that? And this year they drew the line in the sand and said, this applies to accountants. And so you can read about it on like the AICPA and Journal of Accountancy. So it's starting to get momentum. I think it's going to be sort of the talk of the town come May, and we're going to have everything in place so that we can help our clients get compliant with that.
Yeah, I think it kind of big umbrella came under was if you have any kind of financial data for another individual, right?
Yeah,
you fall under this.
And I mean, you got someone's bank account routing number, social security number. I mean, you have the information on a 1040, you can do a lot of damage. So, okay.
Anything else that you can think of that you'd like to share, or are we at a good point to wrap up?
I think we're at a good point. Tech4accountants.net. You can get a complimentary audit. IRS wants to see a data security plan. We've got free templates you can download, put it together yourself. We could also do it for you, but there's free resources on the site.
Great. Oh, and then I did have one other question that I jotted down. So where do people find you, both from a face-to-face? Do you guys do trade shows like when we're back?
This year we're already signed up at Scaling New Heights. So we'll be in St. Louis in July. Almost positive we're going to do QuickBooks Connect. June. Yeah, it's in June. I'm having a daughter in July. That's
it's very important.
Yeah. My wife is like, "You're seriously going to St. Louis right before she's born?" I was like, I mean, it's before she's born though.
Right. I didn't set the dates.
Right. Yeah. So we'll be at Scaling New Heights, and most likely we'll be at QuickBooks Connect when they announce the date there, and probably Thomson Reuters, I think, is doing Colorado, the Synergy. Okay. We may go to that too. The Gaylord's pretty good. So yeah.
Have you ever done any of the IRS nationwide forums? Have you done those?
No, those are the only three that we've done some of the local ones, but no, we haven't done those.
Yeah, or like Latino Tax Pro.
You familiar? No, but you're not the first one to recommend that.
Okay. Yeah, I've been to that many times, actually both of those many times, and they're very engaged. There's very, very engaged audiences. Problem with the tax forums is there's 5 of them, right? But there's a lot of people at them. But that Latino Tax Pro is very similar to Scaling New Heights, in my opinion. as far as the engagement of the attendees. You don't have to speak Spanish, but if you do, it certainly is a positive. So I've exhibited there with Canon before, and actually brought a friend of mine who was an accounting professional from Puerto Rico. And so some people did walk up and they would much prefer, and it was a smaller group that preferred to speak in Spanish versus English. So it was great having him there. So check them out. Two great events. Or
awesome.
IRS Nationwide Forum, again, 5 events, and then the Latino Tax Pro is a single event.
Well, I should probably take that as a sign from the universe that that's where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think it's a good next step, and it's I don't know how big I didn't go last year, and I think they did have a face-to-face last year, but when I've been in the past, they've had 15, maybe 1,800 attendees, so it's a pretty good number of people who and every one of them needs what you do, right? It's mandatory now.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, certainly appreciate it, Andrew. Thanks for taking some time. Thanks for
Gary, thank you.
Sharing your info, and I'm sure we will talk very soon.
For sure. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.